Time to make our game picks. Andrew, I'm going to allow you to go first here. The line is 41.5. Ohio State versus Youngstown State at noon on Saturday. What is your game score?
Ohio State is going to win. Breaking news. 45-3. They're going to cover the spread ever so slightly. So I think that this is one of those games where Youngstown State's going to try to run the ball a lot. Wouldn't be surprised if Ohio State tries to run the ball a little bit. I understand you want to get your quarterback some reps, but I was looking up some of the other FCS scores from week 1. Notre Dame beat Tennessee State 56-3. That line was 48.5. Georgia beat UT Martin 48-7. That line was 50. So UT Martin actually covered that one with some relative ease. Ole Miss beat Mercer 73-7. That line was 35. And Oregon beat Portland State 81-7. So yeah, that one was crazy. But you kind of see the variation a little bit. I think some of these big schools, Georgia specifically, I think, and maybe to a lesser extent Notre Dame, I think they recognize, like, I know Sam Hartman didn't play the second half. I know Georgia kind of did the same thing. They kind of pulled some guy. Like, I think the bigger teams and the teams that are kind of at the maybe top half of the top 25 polls kind of understand where they're at. And they understand that, look, this is a long season. We're going to get these guys some rest. I wouldn't be surprised if Ohio State does that. I just, at what point do you pull Marv? Like, Ryan Day said, I forget if it was on his radio show or during his, his rapid fire Q&A that we did with him on
lightning round,
whatever. It's lightning round. But you get what I'm saying. But somebody asked him a question, like, you never want to take anything for granted, but is there kind of, would you maybe look to get Marvin out of the game a little bit? And like, I think that can go for Emeka and Marv. And like Ryan Day was, he was fairly diplomatic with his answer. Oh, you got to try to win every game and blah, 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 but I think that goes back to what Nathan was saying. You're not going to really want to show up Youngstown State. I think there's a little bit of that. I think there's also a little bit of, we got Western Kentucky next week and Notre Dame the following week. Like, this is kind of a build for us. And this is the week that if you're going to get guys rest, you want to do it. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's 14-0. You start to see some serious rotation going on Ohio State's offensive and defensive side of the ball. So Ohio State's going to win. They're going to cover. I didn't see an over-under, but I would bet you the over-under is probably at somewhere right around. Yeah, I would bet you that if there is one released, by the time you're listening to this, it will be somewhere 48 to 49 to 50, because it's basically like, will Youngstown State score? Will they score a touchdown? So Ohio State's going to win 45-3.
Nathan, what's your game score?
So I'm going to go ahead and take the same one that I had already kind of conjured up when I thought we might be picking against the Tissue line, and that's very close to Andrews, actually. It's 48-3 Ohio State, so that would be covering the 41.5, and would be probably covering any, be on the over of any point total that ended up coming out. And I did go back and look to come up with that. I went back and looked at, and this doesn't tell us anything about Ohio State, but I did go back and look at the last, Alabama and Georgia play an FCS team every year, basically. And a lot of times it's late in the season. So that is an X factor here to remember. But the average score of those games, the past 4 that each of them was played, for Alabama, it's basically like 50-9. And for Georgia, it's 49-6. So that, again, tells you that maybe this 41.5 line makes some sense. There have been some variations in there. Alabama will beat Western Carolina 66-3, but then they'll also beat Austin Peay 34-0. Georgia beat Samford 33-0. And you're right, they'll sub out their stars pretty early on. I think Ohio State will have a chance to do that, even though it does have a game coming up against Western Kentucky after that, where, because of, I think, where Western Kentucky is defensively, there's a scenario where things can get out of hand in that game too. But I don't think Ohio State can plan accordingly. I think you've got to probably try to manage your starters, get be very productive with them early, get them out of the game, and then see what the second string can do. So just a game that if Ohio State is not taking control, seizing control early, and sort of pushing them around the way that they didn't push Indiana around in most capacities on offense last week, that's just what you need to see this week. So 48-3. But I also one of those games where if the score did get really ugly, nobody would be surprised.
So both of you are taking OSU to cover so far, but doing it in a very conservative way. Both of your guys' scores resemble the Tressel era when they played Youngstown State. In 2007, they played Youngstown State. They won 38-6. And then the following year, 2008, when they played them, they won 43-0. The only other time Ohio State has played an FCS opponent in the past 25 years is in 2013 when they hosted Florida A&M under Urban Meyer, and they won 76-0. That is where the range I'm at. And the reason why I'm in that range is there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 7 other instances. And just since Ryan Day has been here, whether we're talking as an offensive coordinator or as a head coach, where Ohio State has scored at least 60 points. Maryland in 2017, they scored 62-14. Oregon State the following year, they won 77-31. The following year against Michigan, they scored 62, and it was 62-39. Then against Miami of Ohio, his first year as the head coach, 76-5. Against Maryland that same 2019 season, 73-14. And then against Maryland in 2021, 66-17. And then last year against Toledo, 77-21. So only 2 of those have come against non-Power 5 teams. And if you take away Oregon State, only 3 of them have not come against Big Ten teams. I think against these lower level teams, whether you're talking non-Power 5 and now you're throwing an FCS opponent to there, Ohio State can just slip and fall in the touchdowns. That's just there's execution, but then there's also I'm just better than you, and a drive that maybe they were planning to maybe go 3, 4, or 5 plays just goes 1 play, or something happens on special teams, or somebody gets a pick 6 or a scoop and score. You just have to bake all of that into your idea of how this game is going to go. And so I came up with the score 70-0. It's just 10 touchdowns. Some of that might be offensive. Most of it will be offensively. Maybe some comes on defense. One maybe comes on special teams. Check out our outrageous predictions video to see what that one is. But I just think Ohio State is going to slip and fall into the end zone time and time again, because this is already one of the most potent offenses in the country for Power 5 schools to deal with and Big Ten schools to deal with. Now you're talking about a school who doesn't have any real answer for it, while also Ohio State is going to have a point in this game where they're trying to execute some things, especially in the first half. I don't think they score 20 points in every single quarter. I think the fourth quarter is where it starts to speed up, and maybe they just slow it down. But I think the first 3 quarters, they're just going to be trying to execute because they're trying to figure out this quarterback situation while also just playing football, and I think they just might end up in the end zone a lot. So all 3 of us taking the cover. Andrew and Nathan, maybe it's a little bit more sweat it out. For me, it's very simple, 70-0. And those are our game picks here on Buckeye Talk.